What's up? What's happening on a Monday? It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You know, ironically, Ant, with the hour open that you played, the Bears and Jets actually have pretty good drafts.
I know. Exactly.
There's like actually some, some hope.
Yeah.
I think people generally like what they did. We do a big winners and losers later, or maybe even tomorrow. I think we'll focus mostly on the Commanders today. We'll use tomorrow to go a little bit more league-wide.
Yeah.
I think the Jets and Bears could come up. You know, there's a lot of people think won the draft.
I think the Commanders, maybe?
People's left hands, they're up. They're up. Happy Monday. It's already been a day. Which I feel like has been way too many of my days as of late. I did have a phenomenal time at Mystics Media Day this morning. I think it was like 5 or 6, 7 great interviews. They're all in our big like live stream on demand now, the Rewind on the Team 90's YouTube page. We'll chop them up and have those out on all our digital platforms over the next couple of days. But did that, recorded Take Command, and now ready to talk with the people about the Commanders draft. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. Just very simply, like now that it's all done, we spent all this time, all this consternation leading up to the draft. What do we think of what Adam Peters and company did in their first go-around? I think for me, I come away with a much deeper understanding of how Adam Peters wants to build his football team, and to him, what building through the draft really means. And it means that if I didn't draft you, like, not that it doesn't matter, but like, this is where we're going to build our team. Like, he takes it literally. A lot of teams say, oh, we're going to build through the draft, and then they go chasing needs, and they overdraft guys, or they take a flyer that doesn't really fit who they are from a personal, like a character standpoint. And what they build is like a mess. And I think if you look at the through line of the players that the Washington Commanders drafted, yes, a lot of them are positions of need, especially once you realize that Brandon Coleman might actually be a tackle, the TCU lineman that they took at 67. But the through line of their picks was the character of who they are as people. They're all team captains, some multiple time, like 2-time team captains. They are all extraordinarily competitive, and not just like in the way the pro athletes are all competitive. Like amongst pro athletes, they are the high-end graders on competitiveness and physicality and toughness. They finish plays. I think in a couple of key spots, there's some positional versatility, which is different than position flex in that it's really players that you can use. Like positional versatility, it's actually not that different than position flex. I guess position flex I think of as like alignment. It's like he could play here, he could play here. Positional versatility is I can move this player like a chess piece all over the field to create advantages for me. Guys like Ben Sinnott, guys like Luke McCaffrey. I think Jer'Zhan Newton has some of that as well, where you are going to see them line up in different places, not just because we're trying to figure out where they're good, but because we know they can be effective in this particular role. And I think the through line of that, of who they are as people, though, is by design to lay the foundation of who they want to be. Like, they want to, from Josh Harris on down, but Adam Peters is the main driver of this, reestablish what it means to be a Washington Commander, right? What it meant under Ron Rivera, I don't even know. 4 years in a tenure completed. Like, what's a Ron Rivera football player? I don't know. Best answer is probably some kind of snarky one that's like, well, he's probably not that good, because they just didn't have success of bringing in players that have met or exceeded expectations. There's just not a lot of them around. I could define for short bursts during the previous administration when like McLuhan was here, what a Scott McLuhan football player was. But even then, like, part of the problem for McLuhan was he got sidetracked by like a guy like Josh Dotson. Like, that dude didn't fit the toughness, competitiveness stuff. And that kind of veer really wrecked what they were doing. He is a bad pick. And I was the guy defending Dotson forever. I thought he was going to work out because I'd watch the dude practice or watch him in training camp and be like, I don't know, man. He was awesome here. And just never, ever in games did it wind up coming through. And that does speak to the character part of the evaluation of the competitiveness and, kind of the dog mentality that is required to be a success in this league. And what's interesting is I think that while there is a level of risk with some of the players they took in terms of limited upside, some of them I actually don't know that there is that much risk. Maybe others have more explosive and exclusive types of traits. Maybe some guys are feel like real flyers based off ability because they have one specific, speed trait or strength trait that for their position is the kind of thing that could make you elite. But I look at a lot of the guys that they took and I'm like, I don't know. There are some people that think that Jerzon Newton is right up there as one of the best defensive linemen in this class. And if Adam Peters was one of those and they turned out to be right, that is a steal at 36. And we're talking a guy, just to be clear, there are people that think Jerzon Newton can be a Pro Bowl level player. I don't know it's certainly not the consensus. I haven't watched enough of him yet to have a good feel for what I think of him. There are risks. He has the Jones fracture in the foot, and foot injuries for big guys are scary. But at the end of the day, your upside or your kind of range is, well, what's the worst version of your career to what's the best version of your career based off what we can possibly project right now. And right now, there are people who think that Jerzon Newton could be an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler. Ben Sinnott, there's a little Kyle Juszczyk to his game. You tell me that I'm getting Kyle Juszczyk? I'm psyched. Mike Sanders still? I don't know if he winds up being a Pro Bowl type of player, so maybe he's a little quote-unquote limited there, but that's because nickel corners typically don't make the Pro Bowl. He could be one of the best nickel corners in the league. That's a really valuable piece. Love that. So there's these guys, Coleman's big, athletic, physical. He's got a nasty streak to him. I don't know what more you want in a project kind of offensive lineman. And by the way, he's got a pretty decent feel for the game at tackle. He's shown that in his time there, which he's played more tackle than guard at TCU. McCaffrey, we talked about just learning the position, really good athlete, obviously, tremendous pedigree, tremendous work ethic. If he can develop the receiver parts of his game, which between the internal resources he'll have here in Washington and his brother to lean on, who's the best route running back, not only in the league now, but one of the best 5 ever. And his dad, who's multiple-time Super Bowl champion receiver, Luke McCaffrey's probably going to be pretty good. And so you go down the list, and it's just a bunch of guys that have the right. And Jaden Daniels fits this as well, right? Tremendous work ethic, upward trajectory, physically gifted, competitive, tough, finish plays, team captains, leadership. Sounds like a formula for a bunch of winning. Now, talent is the other big part of that, and they still are years away from having the talent to win big, and obviously years away from this talent. 1, understanding whether or not it panned out. 2, to what extent are these a bunch of guys that are going to be role players, or are hopefully Daniels and multiple others going to emerge as Pro Bowlers in the same way that some of the draft classes in San Francisco did. That's the hope. That's the goal. That's the setup. Now we wait and see for the success. How do you feel on this Monday after the NFL draft? 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Let's get to the phones next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Coming up at 5 p.m. today, Michael Phillips returns to the show. Little Monday with Michael. Other than that, it's pretty much your calls at 301-230-0980 with your thoughts on the 2024 NFL Draft. How do you think the Commanders did? Maybe your favorite pick, your least favorite, the one you got questions about. Let's party. Let's start it off with JT. JT, thanks for holding. You are on the Hoffman Show.
What's up, Craig? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thanks for calling in.
No problem, man. I love the draft. Obviously, I think my favorite would be between, obviously, Jaden and then also Newton. My least favorite, I would probably go with the tight end from Kansas State, only because I felt that I wanted us to try to get Kingsley Sumonte. I thought we could have still got him right before that pick. I'm not sure to be exact, but I knew that he fell along with that. You know, he was a captain at BYU, and I thought with him and then still adding the tackle that we added, I think that would have gave us a little bit more wiggle room on the O-line. But, I mean, other than that, I'm not mad at it. I like the traits that we were looking for, and I look forward to us as we continue to grow as a team. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, JT. Good call. And I think you raise like definitely the conundrum of the draft, if you will, if you're the Commanders, is did you need to take a tackle and prioritize it higher? I like the trade back. 50 and 53 for 40 is like, obviously there's more machinations in that. And I do believe that Suamatia went all the way down at 63. But there's some real questions about Suamatia. One, like from an athletic development standpoint, is he going to develop? Like you took the thing with Coleman is like Coleman's a project. So is Suamatia. Now maybe the clay's a little better on Suamatia, but there's more to it than like the physical tools. And this is something that I think teams probably had questions about with Suamatia. Is he initially was at Oregon and had to transfer because he basically got homesick. Now, nothing wrong with a 20-year-old kid getting homesick, and he could have certainly grown out of that. But it's the kind of thing that when a lot of people were mocking him at the top of the first round, the bottom of the first round, and he doesn't go to the bottom of the second round. I wonder as if teams did their research on that, if there were some teams that were less comfortable with him or maybe even took him off their board as an option because they didn't think that he would be able to adjust and like thrive. And in some ways, like, is that an indictment of him? Sure, I guess. But everyone matures and develops at a different rate. And like, if teams recognize that, then good for them and good for him. He winds up going to Kansas City, which is kind of obviously, I guess Denver, but like one of the shorter flights back to Utah, if that's where home was. And if that's one of the places he wanted to be. So like, a lot easier than coming all the way across the country to D.C. Maybe there's some less culture shock in Kansas City. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into it. I also think the other thing with Suamatia versus Coleman, and, say the same thing for Patrick Paul, et cetera, those guys had inconsistent effort on tape. And one thing you can say about Brandon Coleman is that dude competes his butt off every single snap. And again, I think Coleman's a little bit older. But like Suamatia is young. He's like 21, if I'm remembering correctly. At this point, all the prospects profiles are mushed in my head. But like, when some of these guys, like, okay, maybe in a couple of years or with, in an NFL environment, they would have been better picks. But I think for where Washington is right now and who they want to be from a culture standpoint and the kind of player they want to say, like, this is a Washington Commander, Brandon Coleman fits that profile perhaps better than Suamatia, better than Patrick Paul, better than some of these guys who athletically might have a little bit more upside, but they're betting on Coleman reaching his upside and providing a level of consistency for them that maybe some of the other guys wouldn't. And by the way, athletically, Coleman's a monster. Like his raw athletic score is like where Peter Skoronski was, except for he has 2.5 inch longer arms. Skronsky went 9 last year. So potential-wise, we're talking about really, really high upside guy. Let's go to Brian. Brian, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, what's up, Craig? How are you?
I'm good, Brian. Thanks for calling in.
Two specific things that I like about this draft. First off, I think as a fan base, we probably would have the bubbly feeling if we select Daniels first, and then like the next 3 picks are two tackles and a wide receiver. However, what Peters did shows me this. It shows me that he's not putting all of his eggs or hope into one basket and saying, look, we got a quarterback, and everything that we do after this has to be about making sure he succeeds. No, he's saying we need to build a complete football team. Quarterback is important. What we put around him is important, but that's not all that goes into making a complete football team. And then the second thing kind of comes off of that, where the next 2 picks were defensive, what I'm starting to look at as weapons. When we talk about weapons in football, a lot of time the first things we think about are skill positions on the offensive side. But the way Quinn seems to have coached with Dallas, that guy Newton, if all accounts or if most accounts are true, and the defensive back from Michigan, Craig, I know how you are about us properly pronouncing last names, so I'm not going to try to take a stab at it.
Hey, some of them are harder than others. Mike Sanders still is, I believe, how you say it. That's good enough for me. That's what we're operating with today.
Yeah, Sanders still. I think I can get that off. So those seem like defensive weapons that can be employed by Dan, meaning they play the game to attack the football, whether it's the courier or the football itself. So that's what I like about the draft.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great call, Brian. Thanks for chiming in. I mean, the thing about the Commanders draft, is they did have some weapon type players, and Sanders still and Newton, I think, qualify. I think Sinat, the tight end, but also fullback from Kansas State, certainly qualifies. I think that the safety they took late, I'm now blanking on his name, I apologize, but kind of that same type of player that Dan had in Dallas, like the Jaron Curse, he's 6'2", 6'3", 215. He's a hybrid linebacker, safety, might play some nickel. Those kinds of guys are great if you know how to use them. If you just try to say you can do everything, go play. You don't give them clear instructions, which just feels like what they did with Quan Martin last year for the first part of the year, then it's probably not going to go great. And so I think one of the things that you see is Dan's, obviously Adam comes from that culture in San Francisco, right? Kyle has Juszczyk and Debo and McCaffrey. And you see what Kyle does with that offense and the versatility that he has and how he uses personnel to manipulate matchups, how he knows if Kyle Juszczyk is on the field that he can draw base defense, and then that allows him with some of the other pieces that he has and Juszczyk to spread things out and create good matchups. And Juszczyk's going to get some poor linebacker out one-on-one in space and destroy him. And those are key things, or, be able to switch, a coverage assignment, and he and Kittle mismatch. And then all of a sudden you have their third best or their sixth best coverage player on George Kittle. And you're stealing. And so Adam comes from that, but I think Dan has learned a lot about that too. One, Dan and Kyle work together. I think that's important to remember. But two, Dan took some time, as did Adam, and talked with someone like a Bob Myers and talked to some NBA coaches. And Quinn has done this as well, about positionless basketball and how do you take that concept and apply it to football. And it starts with athletes who are smart, athletic, versatile, multiple skill sets. Then how do we take the right skill set at the right time and apply it in the right place? And they definitely got a bunch of guys that they can do that with. I think is really fun and really exciting. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. More of your calls next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And I feel like one of my favorite things is getting to learn the stories of athletes. Obviously, it's always really cool to like understand who these people are as people. I wonder later in the show, we might just dive into all of them in the Beast, because Dane Brugler from The Athletic does such a good job of getting the backstories. Like I was just reading Brandon because I wanted to double check my Kingsley Sumataya facts. And yeah, he's 21. He's younger. He went to Oregon and then had to transfer back to BYU because he grew up in Orem, Utah, and like I had the right guy, the right story, and all that stuff. But I was reading about Brandon Coleman and forever sort of Suamatia. What I should have learned. I heard it many different ways.
Yep.
He was Brugler's 7th ranked tackle. Coleman was 9th. So I think that's worth pointing out. But reading about his story is amazing. He's actually born in Virginia. Dad is in the military, grew up in Germany for most of his life. So, yeah, what a story. No star recruit, went to community college. Now
No star?
No star. He didn't play basketball, or he didn't play football until he was like a junior in high school.
Oh, wow.
So we might just do story time later. I don't know if that's kosher to just like read the Beast on the radio, but we can hit some highlights. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Let's go to Chris in Annapolis. Chris, you are on the Hoffman Show. What do you think of the Commanders 2024 draft?
I think I like it. There's a fair philosophical debate, I think, over what to do with tackle, because you could argue that it really is the only thing that's really important this year is supporting Jaden Daniels like any way we can, and we should have done everything we could to get a tackle to help with that. But the idea of trading up from round 2, you're going to trade up for one of these guys who barely played, and they have high bust potential. They got upside, don't get me wrong, but they got bust potential too. So the choice was, pick a tackle up there or trade up and use a bunch of picks and get a tackle, or stay where you are. And then we're staying where we are. And now it's like, well, how good are the guys in round 2? We got a guy in round 3 that seems like he's just about as high a probability to succeed as the guys in round 2. Like, I don't think we missed out doing it the way we did. So I think the tackle discussion is fair to discuss, but I think we did the right thing.
Yeah.
I do want to say one more thing.
Yeah, just real quick, Chris, I promise I won't hang up on you.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Like, Logan and I were having this conversation earlier today for Take Command that everyone can hear when it hits the feed tomorrow morning. But basically, I was like, so let me get this straight. They took a guy who's a bit of a project potentially at tackle, but competes his ass off every single snap over a guy or a bunch of guys who also are projects at tackle but don't have that on film. And he's like, yeah, kind of. And I was like, cool. Sounds like we got the better guy. Now, it's obviously more complicated than that in terms of upside and potential and all those kinds of things. But considering who Coleman is as an athlete, like I 100% agree that it's worth having the discussion. But at the end of the discussion, they did the right thing. What's your second point?
For years, it's driven me crazy that this team cannot block the edge on offense. It's driven me crazy. And by that, I mean tight ends and wide receivers. And I think this tight end they got is a philosophy change. I love it. It's what I wanted in this draft. I think it's telling us something about what they're going to become. And I know people are kind of killing it because the guy was rated a little lower. Adam Peters found the guy he wanted, and he went and got him. And I love it. Hopefully he's right. Who knows? But yeah, I love the philosophy change.
Chris, I totally agree. And thanks for the call. I think that one thing that should be kept in mind about the Niners, which is obviously Adam had a huge role in building that team, is they suck to play. Not just because they're good. And like game planning for Kyle's a nightmare. They've had great defensive coordinators from Saleh all the way through. I mean, look, Wilkes only lasted a year there, but like Steve Wilkes is a really, really good coordinator. And so all the way through, they've just been terrible to play against. And by the way, they're also the most physical team in the league. And that is who the Commanders are going to be. Like, that's who Dan Quinn wants to be. Dan Quinn wants you to remember that you played Washington for a week. That's who Adam Peters wants to be. And there was this crazy stat 2 years ago, I believe, that every team that played the Niners lost the next week. Because obviously that's a multifactorial equation, but the consistent thing is playing the Niners. And it's so miserable because they're so physical that you just get, like, it's hard to recover. And I think with guys up and down, even again, starting with Daniels. Daniels is slim, sure, but he plays with a physicality about him. Like, he will deliver contact. You might not want him to. And it certainly seemed like the LSU coaches eventually were like, hey, dude, stop doing that. But that's the mentality he brings. And Sanat is 100% what Chris just said. He is the guy that Adam Peters clearly wanted. They wanted to add a tight end, and they could have gone Jared Wiley out of TCU or some other guys that, as pass catchers, maybe are a little more skilled or maybe even a lot more skilled. Better route runners, better speed, better whatever. But Sanat gives you an ability to be flexible with your personnel because he can play fullback, H-back. He does block in line, which is something outside of John Bates they don't have. But Sanat's going to be a better route runner and a more versatile piece than a guy like Bates. And here's the thing about Cliff. Cliff, later in his time in Arizona, played a ton, like multiple years later, like back half of his time, played a ton of 12 personnel. So for as much as you think of Cliff as this 10 personnel, which is 4 wide receivers, 1 running back, no tight ends, he actually is playing with 1 running back and 2 tight ends a lot. And I think that the conglomeration of offense that they build here between Cliff and the ability to use that, what Anthony Lynn will bring from working directly with Kyle in San Francisco the last couple of years and understanding how to use a piece like Juszczyk, and the ingenuity that Brian Johnson brings and the quarterback run game and all that kind of stuff from Philly that they bring Brian Johnson in for, this is an essential piece to that, and I'm really excited to see what they do with it. Let's go to Kelly in Hyattsville. Kelly, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Craig, thanks a lot, man.
You got it.
I'm ecstatic about the draft. They drafted football players and leaders, and they drafted aggression. So when you look at who's the cornerback from Michigan?
Yeah, Mike Sanderstill.
The way he arrives at the ball and the surety of his tackles is a beautiful thing to watch. The play is over when he gets there. He's got great hands and contested balls. And so I think that the defense this year, just, compared to last year's defense, the back seven seemed like they were hesitant to engage in tackling. And this defense is not going to do that. They're going to stop people, give the ball back to the offense, and the offensive weapons they have are just such an upgrade. And they put pressure on defensive coordinators to defend the entire field. And so I'm excited, man. I think they did a great job, did mortgage the future. And, 2 more drafts of this, type plus free agent acquisitions, I think, in 2 years, really going to be knocking on the door of something nice. So,
yeah, Kelly, thanks for the call. I agree. And, I think it's nice to see the process, to, understand, oh, this is the path we're on. I see it now. And to also be able okay, they're not in a rush to try to fix everything at once, because you can't. And that's the thing. It'd be one thing if there were opportunities for them to do no-brainer things and fix all their holes, and suddenly you feel oh, we're competing for Super Bowl next year. But that doesn't exist unless Jaden Daniels is way better, not just than we think he can be in year 1, but than any rookie's basically ever been in year 1. CJ Stroud had arguably the best rookie season ever, and Stroud got bounced early in the playoffs. Jaden's got to be, and again, I think that he can get to this level in 2, 3, certainly 4, 5, 6, 7 years. With years 6, kind of when quarterbacks tend to enter their prime through, you hope, year 10, 12, because they have enough of a mental library in the NFL to really, the game starts to slow down and become easier. Not that guys can't be really, really successful, obviously, before then, but there's just like you can't sacrifice a bunch of stuff for the future to try to fix problems right now when the solutions don't exist right now. And this gets back to the previous caller talking about tackle. Like there wasn't a clear alternative at tackle. Yes, Tyler Guyton. If you told me I could have Brandon Coleman or Tyler Guyton, I'd take Tyler Guyton, who the Cowboys ultimately took at 29. By the way, I really actually like what Dallas did a lot in this draft, but we can talk about that another day. But they, there's no guarantees. And if you had guarantees, you do it, but you don't. And so you stay patient. You reevaluate a year from now, and you continue to push forward with the same philosophy of we're going to draft tough physical football players that make our team better, that fill the roles we need with skill sets that we want. And we're going to keep our eyes on our own paper. And if people like this year love what the Commanders do and they're getting applaud from national pundits, then great. And if not, that's okay too. They're not going to really care as long as they actually are moving in the direction they want to go on the field, which will ultimately be measured starting really next year in wins and losses. This year's a baseline. But I think that eventually the results matter. But right now they're just going to stick to their process. And I think we now as a collective outside watching unit, media and fans, understand that process even more than we did when they were just talking about it leading into the draft. 301-230-0980. One more segment of your calls next before Michael Phillips joins us at the top of the hour, 5 p.m. here on the Team 980. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And you came in the studio during the last break and said, do you know the name of this song? And then played me Zed's Clarity. Was there a particular reason you were looking for this excellent bop?
I really like this song. So there are a lot of songs that I like, and I never know the name of those songs.
That's my entire existence now because I have so many things that just pop up on Spotify or whatever I'm listening to, and unless I take my phone out and look and like commit it to memory,
Yep.
no dice.
Yeah.
But that one, that's in my sweet spot era of time when Craig knew music song titles because he was doing music radio too.
Yeah, I knew you would know.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, let me ask Craig. He would
Oh,
know.
you mean Clarity by Zed?
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to think of Zed's the DJ. Now it's killing me. Who's the actual artist who sings on it? Oh, I'll look it up in the next break before Michael Phillips joins us.
Foxes?
What?
Foxes?
I don't think so.
It says Zed featuring Foxes.
Oh, maybe. I thought there was someone else on that one. Maybe I'm thinking of a different Zed song. Zed and Mara Morris. Now that was the banger in the middle. But that was a different song. Anyway, let's talk football. Let's talk about instead of 2010s pop music. Both things I'm very good at. But let's go to Lucas in Hagerstown. Lucas, go ahead. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it. Always enjoy listening to the show.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you. What you got for me?
So I think it's unbelievable. I think the culture has been changed. I love everything that we're doing right now. I really just kind of have a question, and like if I had to rate the draft, we'd be like a B or a B plus. I don't understand, and it's basically I would like you to explain it to me. The kid from Michigan that's only 5'9" that plays corner. All last year we talked about defensive backs being taller, getting like a 6-foot defensive back. All the other picks, like I can understand, they look good. And this kid from Michigan, you know, you talk about being hard-nosed players. He looks like it. He does, absolutely. But there were 6-foot corners out there. I don't know why we did the same thing again and he ain't even really 5'9". He's like 5'8.5". So
yeah, I mean,
I'm not understanding that pick. That's the one I'm not understanding.
Yeah, so Lucas, the answer is actually very simple. From a character standpoint, there is not a single player in the draft that you could circle that is more emblematic of what the Washington Commanders want to become under Adam Peters and Dan Quinn than Mike Sanders still. He is that highly rated from a character standpoint. He was the heart, soul, and leader of that Michigan defense. He's someone that they want to coach. He's someone that they want to have in the building. And he brings a toughness and attitude, a work ethic, and all that stuff that overcomes the size. And yes, there's going to be times where size matters, but he's willing to stick his nose in there. Like he'll go fit a run like he's a linebacker. Like he will go in there and make plays, and he's got enough instincts and ball skills and all that kind of stuff that it's worth it to them. He's also got a 40-inch vertical, which tends to help on you know the height part of it. But he's got enough other stuff that you're willing to overlook the size and say, with a second-round pick, I'm going to bet on that.
So is he going to play, in your opinion, I'm asking, like, is he going to play like the slot? Is he going to be like a slot DB?
Yeah, he is a nickel corner. And the good news is he's a nickel corner who could play nickel tomorrow.
Shut down corner on the outside.
Well, yeah, and this is the hard part, right? Was there anybody available then that you look at and you go, that's a shutdown corner? Probably there's someone who might wind up being, but it's hard to know because you're in the second round at that point. You know, the top guys are off the board. And
Is the kid from Iowa still available?
Yeah, TJ Tampa. You're talking DeJean or TJ Tampa from Iowa State?
The kid from Iowa.
Cooper DeJean. Yeah, well, he was available to them kind of because they were on the clock at 40 when they made the trade with the Eagles. Then went back and the Eagles took DeJean. But DeJean's not necessarily looked at as a shutdown corner. He's looked at as like a hybrid move piece. There's some people that think he can be a corner, but he might be a nickel, he might be a safety.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And so ultimately, and I gotta let you run, Lucas. Great call and good question, and a good discussion here. Just got a couple more calls to get to, but with Sanders still, like, he's a nickel. He plays inside, and he's going to compete his face off in there. But the thing with Quinn and with this roster, with Peters as well, is they've got other options there. That if they're playing a team that plays a bunch of big personnel, like power slot type of stuff, that's probably just not going to be a Mike Sainristil game. And maybe Quan Martin moves down into the nickel. Maybe Jeremy Chin is playing more of the nickel. Maybe the safety they took in the 5th round, who's got some size to him and can play down in the box. Maybe he winds up playing a little bit more on any given day. Percy Butler, Derek Forrest, like they have all of these different body types that have experience playing in and outside in some cases, or like safety, nickel, Buffalo nickel, etc. And so, yes, when it comes to, covering your typical type of slot receiver, Mike Sainristil is as good as you could have gotten in this draft. But the beauty of what they're building here is it's not the only guy that they have that can play inside. And he is the only guy that has the character that he's got. He's one of one. And that is why ultimately he gets drafted to match his very, very high-level nickel corner skills. Let's go to Little. Little, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show. And we're going to put Little back on hold and see if he gets back to his phone. Let's go to Greg. Greg, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig. Thanks for having me on, man. So good to talk to you as always.
Thank you.
I told y'all, don't worry about the quarterback position, man. We got our quarterback, Craig. I've been a Redskin fan my whole life. And, of course, I grew up first with Joe Theismann and watched him crumble under the arms of Lawrence Taylor. And ever since that, man, we've had, Doug Williams and Mark Rippon who, weren't perennial all-stars or Pro Bowlers. And since then, it's just been a mosh podge of just journeyman. So I'm just so happy, since RG3. So I'm just so happy that we got a shot to have a franchise quarterback. I just love Jalen.
Yeah, man.
In respect to the other picks, man, I think it's been a long time. I can't remember the last time we got an A according to the prognosticators. So I couldn't be happier. I mean, I don't know how anybody can be mad about us not getting multiple offensive linemen. How many offensive linemen do we see go in the first round and turn into total bust? I mean, you can even see the guy who just got traded, Mekhi Becton, right?
Yeah.
He was a number one. He was a first round. He just got traded after about 3 or 4 years. So it's always a crapshoot. You just got to pick the best player available. But second round, we got one of the best defensive linemen. We got tight end number 2, according to the prognosticators, who I think is really a more complete player than the boy from Georgia.
Yeah, he's definitely a more complete, more versatile player than Brock Bowers. I'd rather have Brock Bowers because Brock Bowers is real special at the whole catch the ball and run with the ball thing, which is pretty important. But to your point, like a more complete player, that's for sure.
And to respect to the last caller about the what's the boy, Sentinel, Mikey as they call him.
Yeah, Sainristil.
That boy is a dog. He is a culture changer. I mean, Bill Belichick said pound for pound, he might be the best person in the draft. And that's coming from Bill Belichick, a defensive mastermind. So I just couldn't be happy. And then with Darryl Green coming back and those guys having similar traits, similar size, I'm just so ecstatic. We might have our perennial slot corner.
Yeah. All right, Greg. Thanks for the call, man. It was Saban who said that, but still, high praise from Nick Saban on the ESPN Game Day broadcast, saying like he thinks Sainristil might be the best pound for pound player in this draft. He's a smaller guy, but he competes and he's very skilled at what he does. And if you put him in the right situations, he can definitely succeed. All right, let's wrap up the hour. We got Little back. Little, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, Hall, thank you for taking my call, man. I told him I dozed off. But look, man, let me help the fans out. Last game of the season, man, we see this kid that we helped him at, Ron Vereur. They held this kid under bond. His name was 27 years old, Trent Scott, man. That's my starting tackle. Even though I like the draft that they picked. But look, I didn't talk about every player. But you know we got 5 captains we drafted. This linebacker from Temple. I'm going to tell you now. I done seen some stats on him, Hall. The kid got 14 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. How many games they play a year? 10 games a year? That's damn near 1.85 tackle behind the line of scrimmage per game. Come on, man. He's a tackling machine. See, a lot of these fans, I think, what they do, Hall, they just turn the game on Sunday. Say, oh, let me watch the game. Like Darryl Green said, that was the pass. This man, I gave the draft. I tweeted didn't they A-, man. This man plugged in some holes, man. Didn't reach for nobody. That's what I'm talking about. Last year, we gave up everything just to try to get a tackle. You see what I'm saying? But the thing is, they don't realize we got a tackle in the house. Kid ain't but 27 years old, Trent Scott. Hey, man, God bless y'all. Stay up, man. I'm just tired of these fans. Oh, well, we didn't get the backside tackle. Because they're not a real fan. They don't know what's going on. Look at the depth chart. That's what y'all need to look at. Even got a linebacker and a tall wide receiver from Pittsburgh. They ain't even said from the Steelers. Unrestricted picks we got from the Pittsburgh. Malachi something. I can't remember the kid's name, but it's another 6'4" wide receiver we got. They don't even realize
All
that.
right, a little. I got to run because we got Michael coming up. Also, if you got to look that far down on the depth chart, like, I hate to ruin the party here, Ant, but if you got to look that far down on the depth chart to find your guys, maybe there's a reason a lot of people are talking about it. Look, I think Trent Scott's did admirably last year in fill-in duty, but like he doesn't have the physical traits and skills to be a reliable left tackle in the league. His arms are too short. It's just he's not quick enough. He can definitely be your swing guy. He can definitely be your, especially if he's your tackle 4. Like, sick. I like him as my tackle 4, not who I want as my tackle 1. Because when a guy's 27 years old and he hasn't ever been trusted to be a consistent starter, then maybe there's a reason for that. That's all I'm going to say. But we'll see. Who knows? Maybe this is the right system for him. We'll find out. All right. Great calls for most of the hour there. When we get back, Michael Phillips will join us. We have a bonus edition of Real Things coming a little bit later as well. Pure NFL draft. There's so many great moments from the weekend, including some of the Commanders and Adam Peters calls to the prospects to let them know, hey, we're about to draft you. Got some of those from other teams. Got some really funny interviews. We got a bonus Real Things at 5:30, and then more of your calls in the 6 o'clock hour as well. But Michael Phillips joins us next on The Hoffman Show. The Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And Mondays during football season, we were joined weekly by Michael Phillips. And on a very football-y Monday, I thought it was time to restart the tradition.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Michael Phillips, 910 The Fan in Richmond. Hello, sir. Long time no talk. How are you?
Long-time listener, recent-time caller, I guess, something like that. It was good. Good draft. I was actually up your neck of the woods last night. Went to the Caps game. Needed to hit one more before they turned out the lights.
Yeah, well, that turned out to be the one. There's no more of those. That is unfortunately how that went.
It's I can't say I was surprised.
No.
But that's all right. They made the playoffs, and the people of Pittsburgh can cry about that.
Yes, they can. And I'm happy to report, based off the very little that I interact with hockey Twitter, Michael, they are.
You are correct, sir. Exactly.
By the way, just real quick before we dive into the draft, it's 90 degrees here today. How stupid hot? Is it stupid hot there, too, in Richmond?
Yes, and Saturday was – we actually went to the Flying Squirrels baseball game down here on Saturday. It was chilly. I wore a sweater.
Yeah. What happened? I know
What
DC's I know Mid-Atlantic, DC, this 95 corridor. I know spring is quick. But was that really our 2 weeks that we got? There's got to be more coming, right? It's not even May.
There was a good 4 minutes of spring in there. I hope you enjoyed it, Craig. Hope you're able to get outside and enjoy spring.
Son of a biscuit. Okay. Well, there's that. At least, I don't know, it's probably always at least 5 degrees warmer there. So we got that going for us up here, which is nice. Okay, let's start at the top. Jaden Daniels is the number 2 pick for the Commanders. I don't know where you finished your quarterback rankings, how you think he fits with what they want to do here. So what's your if people want the fuller take, they can listen to the MP on the Mic podcast from your radio show from either today or Friday, any of the 2 days since they did this. But the short version is fill in the blank.
Yeah, my listeners know I wanted Jaden Daniels. I got Jaden Daniels. I'm a happy man. I want to take swings. I want the guy who has the chance to be a dynamic playmaker, lift your team. And look, this thing could all collapse in on itself. I'm not unaware of the risks, but it's a risk I'm willing to take to possibly shortcut the entire team building process and go straight to the part where you're competitive every year. I think he was the guy who offered that. I will say my second take pre-draft, Craig, was super wrong because I said, part of me wants to trade with the Raiders, go back to 13 and grab a quarterback there and load up on future Raiders picks, assuming that team will stink and you'll have good picks down the line, a la what Chicago did with Carolina. That take was wrong. Not only were there no quarterbacks left at 13, Bo Nix wasn't around at 13, and the 3 good left tackles were all off the board. That would have been a brutal position to pick out of.
Yeah, you would have. I was always kind of, hey, if you can trade back and trade back up and get someone you like, then okay. But you have to have the second trade in place before you make the first. There is no, 11 was going to be too late. And there's just too much risk involved of teams trading up in front of you as well. It's not just, hopefully someone that's already there doesn't do something unexpected. Turns out Atlanta was in the market for a specific quarterback. Didn't see that one coming. They shouldn't have seen it coming either, but that's a different conversation.
Neither did Kirk.
Yeah, again, different conversation. But at the end of the day, sticking and picking the guy that you like the most, which clearly they did, you're not going to get criticized for that if it works out. You and I and everybody else who does this has been heard the folks who don't like Jaden for this particular reason give this is RG3 2.0 because they see a similar body type. You covered Robert and all that went with it, yet you wanted Jaden. Why is that? I know why it's not a concern for me at all, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Why is it not a concern for you?
Because Robert 1.0 is actually really fun and awesome, and until the wheels came off, if you can manage that better and put that in a better spot, who wouldn't sign up for 5 more years of that? I do think Jaden is better than Robert in every aspect except open field speed. Robert was faster. Jaden has a better arm. I think Jaden's more durable. I think Jaden lived that SEC life and kept bouncing back up. That gives me a little bit of confidence. I will say, though, I am legitimately scared about this offensive line pairing with that quarterback. And the numbers on him and pressure are not great. That is the blinking yellow light to the extent there is one. That is my number one concern right now is that and look, you talk about the draft and needing trade partners and all that. Why didn't they trade in the first round and get a tackle? Like, what you need somebody to trade with you. It takes two. They tried. They couldn't. They're going to pay for that, though, and I have very legitimate concerns there.
I'll circle back to that in a second. For me, the biggest difference between Jaden and Robert is the people they are and the environment that those people went into. Robert, he liked attention. He still does. There's just a fact about Robert Griffin III. That did not mesh. Actually, that's not true. It did not mesh well. Is the wrong way to phrase that. It meshed way too well with the environment that he was going into, considering the owner of the team at the time, and obviously the empowerment that quarterback was given. Jaden Daniels seems to be a no-nonsense business type of guy. Business first. I am just here to play football and do a lot of football work, and that is the exact kind of person that Adam Peters wants, that Dan Quinn wants, and that Josh Harris, I think, frankly, wants. And to me, that's the biggest difference, Michael. And we can talk about the O-line and all that kind of stuff, but the reason that I think Daniels can succeed here has every bit to do with who he is and the environment around him. Maybe we can talk about O-line and put that aside for a second, compared to Robert. And, they're different players outside of the body type anyway, but they're also different people.
Yeah, there's been so much hindsight, obviously, on Robert, and he's addressed it many times, and I think people are largely tired of it. But I will say this, having talked to Mike Shanahan in the days, the weeks, the months right after that Seattle game, Mike Shanahan felt that he could not bench Robert, that he did not have the authority to do that from ownership, and that it would have had negative consequences for him and his employment and for his relationship with Robert and their ability to coexist together. And I echo your thoughts here. That will not happen here. Dan Quinn is empowered to make whatever coaching decision he needs to make as it relates to Jaden Daniels. I have no worries about that, and that is very encouraging.
Okay, Michael Phillips is with us, of course, 910 The Fan in Richmond, MP on the mic, 10 a to noon daily, which you can listen to on the free Odyssey app, because 910 The Fan, like the Team 980, is a fine Odyssey sports station. Okay, the offensive line. They take Brandon Coleman, who I actually think is going to get a really good shot at tackle and might be a better tackle than he is guard, but that is the only way they address this line. Like, why is this line and Daniels such a concern for you when they have gotten Allegretti, Biotish, now Coleman, and continue to try to bolster it out in the ways that they have?
Yeah, and maybe Daniels comes through, has a second-year leap or something like that. And look, when Cornelius Lucas has played, he's been fine. Does that mean he's ready for 17 of these? I have serious doubts there. I'm a big believer in quality over quantity. They have assembled quantity. I think you correctly note that. They've assembled a little quantity on the offensive line. I don't think that's a legitimate substitute for quality, though. If somebody pans out, that's awesome. Big win. Love to hear it. That would be awesome. But you got so many other questions along this line too. I don't. Sam Cosmi, you're good there. You're good at center. You got good options there. Is there another position you feel really good about coming into the season right now?
Really good's probably strong. Wiley's better than people think he is, but he's also not great. He's definitively average and is graded out as definitively average every year. Would love to upgrade there probably next year, but don't think that you're dead man walking, dead in the water. I think the thing that with him there, and then I would say the same at left guard, Allegretti's kind of the left guard version of Andrew Wiley, it seems to be. But I think that what gives me more hope offensively in terms of protection this year is scheme. And so my question to flip back to you would be, what do you feel like you learned about what they want to do offensively based off of who they took? Because I definitely feel like I learned a thing or two.
Yeah, depending on your level of confidence in Kingsbury, right, that can be a selling point or a negative. Not everybody's gave him a glowing endorsement when he was hired, of course, but a lot of it sinks and swims off of what he's capable of, and certainly I loved going for a tight end early. I loved going for a big tight end early, a size guy. Got the second tight end in the draft. Brock Bowers was, of course, never in reach. I love getting the second best tight end because I think as we talk about the line and its weaknesses, bringing in another tight end can be very beneficial to Jaden Daniels, and certainly one who can maybe give you a little bit of a target. I think we're going to see a lot of two tight end out of the gate. I really do. I think that's going to help these guys out a bit. I'm excited though. What's your revelation here on the offense?
Well, I just think the whole draft, it's about physicality and toughness and finishing. And I think Sanat and McCaffrey both are guys that bring that to you offensively, and they'll block. Like Sanat is a good, a blocker. Like Logan was surprised when he watched him. He's like, this dude not only can block, is kind of on the move, H-back, fullback kind of guy, but he can actually line up at tight end, be on the end of the line, and block somebody. And that's great. That's what tight ends in theory are supposed to be able to do, but most of them can't do it. And so getting that toughness and physicality, I think, leads to they're going to get guys they're going to run an offense with Jaden Daniels that does the thing that we thought they would do last year, which is insulate the quarterback by being big and physical, using personnel to give him information and dictate matchups, try to get him some easy matchups, guys like Sanat who can get a linebacker on him and reliably win. And then they're going to be physical as hell and try to run the football. And it's weird because you don't hire Cliff Kingsbury to run the football. But, Michael, I think they might have hired Cliff Kingsbury to run the football at least to start. And, Cliff Kingsbury at the end in Arizona was a guy who wasn't afraid to do that.
Yeah, and if you have Sanat and Bates in there, honestly, you have a pretty good rushing attack right there out of the gate, and you can do some play action off of it. And maybe this is the year we get the appropriate amount of play action mixed in. I hope it is, just for our sanity, obviously. But yeah, I think that the rushing game, Eckler was a great find to me. He was a good value pickup, a guy who finds the end zone, a guy who can get a tough yard, a guy with NFL experience. I really liked that signing, especially at the price point they got in a market where a lot of people spent more and I think got less. I think that will go down as a really good Adam Peters signing, and I hope I don't need to go on the record as loving Brian Robinson, because I love Brian Robinson. I think that's pretty well known by now.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think that, you want to protect a guy like Wiley in pass pro, let him go run block. You want to get Sam Cosmi at his best, let him be a road grader. Coleman, if he winds up being your left tackle, he's got real heavy hands and can do some. He's a great athlete. Get him out in space and let him kill someone in the run game. That's exciting to me. And like you said, Bates, who would have thought Bates, Sanat, Ertz is your tight end room, and then maybe they keep a guy like Armani Rogers around too. Is more of a pass catching backup to Ertz, but they all of a sudden have some really intriguing personnel that a lot of it is young and it's going to have to grow. But they definitely seem to have a type, and that type is physical, which brings us to the defensive side of the ball. What'd you make of guys like Newton, Sainristil, et cetera, and what they did on the defensive side over the weekend?
Yeah, high upside guys, right? And speaking broadly across the draft class, they drafted, I think, what could be a really good 2025 team, which I promise is not an insult. It's a compliment. But there's a lot of high upside guys here that if they are properly coached for a year will become better than their draft position all the way down, and certainly linebacker, safety, the Temple kid, the Washington kid. You've got a lot of that in the late rounds, which I think you have to really love. Is that they didn't reach, they didn't try for, oh my gosh, how do we fill this hole right now? But it was, how do we make the next 4 years better here? And I think they were able to accomplish that to a large degree. You mentioned Sainristil. I'll just be the 9,000th person to say that's a really great pickup, right? This is sacrilege, right? Because he's a Michigan guy. I catch Terry McLaurin vibes there. In that, right? You have a lot of scouts who saw him and wrote down, leader, special teams ace, not sure he can contribute on a play-in, play-out basis. I think he's going to turn some heads immediately at training camp. I was very intrigued. Adam Peters at his press conference referred to him by his college position and by a primarily college position in his usage. I am curious how that translates into Dan Quinn's world. The days of Buffalo nickel appear to be gone.
Well, that's the thing, right? He's like the reason, Michael, I'm sure you know this because you're a man of the world, but in case people don't know, like Buffalo nickel is not something that like Ron Rivera invented. The Buffalo nickel, the actual coin, is a larger version of a nickel. It was a larger coin that the U.S. Mint used to print that is still worth 5 cents. So the Buffalo nickel football term is just a play off of this very like old thing that doesn't exist anymore. The Buffalo nickel, it is, we're going to use the same thing, but it's bigger. And Sainristil, he's a regular size nickel. He's not a large coin. Now worth possibly way more than 5 cents if we're going to mix our metaphors here. But I do think that they have guys on the roster that can fit that. And like that's the intriguing thing is, unlike last year and previous years where I feel like sometimes be like, that guy can play nickel or Buffalo nickel. And I'm like, that's not how it works. There's only like, then it's just the nickel. I feel like Sainristil is going to be their nickel guy. And against certain teams and certain matchups, like he's going to get a lot of snaps. And then other weeks, he might not play a lot because Jeremy Chin will be in there, Quan, or whoever they decide to like put in that role against the right teams, and having that versatility and understanding how to use it as opposed to just calling the same guy doing the same thing something different because you think it sounds cool or whatever the hell reason they were doing it. Like that's the difference between this year and last year.
Yeah, I'm here for some Johnny Newton too, as long as we're going all along the defensive side. I think you talk to the tape watching people. I'll raise my hand and admit I'm not one, but they are wowed, and I've seen some of the clips, and I echo their wow. It's a less informed wow, Craig, but it's no less of a wow.
Yeah, no, I know. Like Mina loves her some Johnny Newton. One of the analysts who watches a lot of tape that is high on Newton. I'm definitely excited about him. I am curious what it means for John Allen, short and long term. I love it short term for John because I think it gives a rotational piece that can keep him a lot fresher than he has been, where he's played way too many snaps in the previous couple of seasons. But how do you see that kind of short and long term for John Allen with the acquisition of Jerzon Newton?
Yeah, and John and Duran both played too many snaps last year. They were out on the field for too many snaps. And so the idea that somehow they don't have snaps to spare, I would push back against that and say I think they could be even better with fewer snaps. I don't think that's an insult to either of them. That's just the reality of the position. But, you've got to figure out what your future is, and you've always got to be looking towards it. And, I mentioned Adam Peters drafting a great 2025 team. That's a really good example of it, right? Like everybody yelling, go get yourself a left tackle. The board didn't say that. The board said, here's this guy that they liked as a first rounder available in round 2. They went and got him. They said, let's get some athletes. Let's figure the rest out later. Does not bother me one bit, Craig Hoffman. We're playing a long game here, not a short game.
Totally. Is that your big takeaway from the weekend? Is that just like because every team says they're going to do this, and then like 30 of them don't. Is that your takeaway from the weekend, that the Commanders are finally a team that will actually do the thing that they said they will do, or did they just, it's easy to do in year one, let's see what they do a year from now?
Yeah, it's tough because I've been through so many of these, man. I try not to be cynical, but a lot of these words we've used, toughness, potential, size, athleticism. I mean, Jamin Davis, right, was he's so athletic, they'll figure out how to develop him and get there, right? So yeah, I don't want to hold the sins of their past against them because I do think it's a really good drafting strategy. I just know this is one part of a much bigger equation, and that includes good coaching, good development, good facilities, good nutrition, good strength room. Don't sleep on how important those things are. There are so many players who could be round 2 and could be round 5 and could develop into something and could develop into nothing, that you win along the edges and along the margins. I do think Josh Harris is committed to winning in that way and to doing things the right way. But I also say this, there's 32 teams, and there are very few poorly run teams in that regard. We were one of them for a long time, right? So I think there's this assumption that there's 20 idiot teams, and now we're in the group of 12 that's awesome. There's probably closer to 26 teams that know the strategy and know how to do it. It's about executing. It's about putting in the work day in and day out. And that's what starts right now.
No, I agree with that. I also think, though, that you might be in a group of 6 teams or whatever it is that actually is willing to have a long view from ownership. And because they're I'm no doubt the Patriots facilities are great, but like there's rumblings about that they're trying to shortcut some things, or Arthur Blank in Atlanta, like we want to do this, and like the ability to just, as a football person, if you're Adam Peters, do the right football thing and not worry about your job and not worry about your coach's job and just trust your board is a luxury that even well-run teams in a lot of regards I don't think have, because their owners succumb to fan base pressure or are fans themselves. And so I was, again, easy to do in year one. We'll see in year two, but I actually have a lot of faith, considering who Adam was in San Francisco, that they'll get this done. Michael Phillips, MP on the mic, 10 a.m. to noon. You can catch him each and every day on the free Odyssey app, or if you're driving through on 9, 10 a.m. or 105.1 FM. Michael, great to chat, my friend. Hope you are doing well, and we will talk to you again some point soon.
See you minicamp. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, it's Michael Phillips, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back here on the Team 980, a very special bonus edition of Real Things Real People Said into Real Microphones, NFL Draft Day edition. No, the show's not going to be over, but there's just so much good sound that we couldn't resist. of course, the general manager, and over a bunch of scouts. And he told the reporters at the post-draft presser that he gives everybody a chance to make their case for their guy on day 3 of the draft. I thought this was very cool. The tale of the Commanders Caucus.
A cool thing. Well, tomorrow morning we'll talk with all the scouts and really everybody who's in that draft room, and they're gonna.
Bad hosting job. This was Friday night after day 2 because this is leading into day 3.
I'll stand on the table and tell us. Well, not really. That's a figure of speech. That's how we say it. Maybe it's a football term. Huh? Is that a football term? I don't know if that's universal. I might be too inside baseball here, Sean, but we tasked a couple of our scouts with naming it, and we're going to call it the Commander Caucus. And so every scout's going to tell us who they like and why, and we're going to take a lot of notes on that. And I think when you do that, you find out who really the real commanders are that are still on the board, and those are the guys who will probably have the best success in picking. So that's how we'll do it, whether it's a lineman or anybody else.
I do have a bit of a conspiracy theory here, Ant. Ooh.
Tell me more.
So this is Adam Peters' first time working with these scouts.
Yep.
I feel like this is also a way that he can evaluate the scouts. Someone puts up someone that it's like, no, this is not how we want to do this. And today's a bad day in the scouting world. A lot of places.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is like Black Monday for scouts.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, because a lot of and part of it's just contractual. A lot of scouts get signed this time of year too, and you know it's Super Bowl or not Super Bowl to Super Bowl, or league year to league year, or you know until you get fired at the end of the season. It's draft to draft. So while no general managers or anybody's getting fired today, you might see some like even directors of college scouting, et cetera. Because like if a new GM comes in, you're just not gonna replace the entire scouting staff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also wonder. I do think it's a great tool to like really make sure the scouts get heard and be like, I really love this guy. Whether you physically or metaphorically stand on a table for them, as Adam Peters hilariously noted there, is up to you. But I also, if I'm Peters, I want to do this for pure reasons, but I also want to do this cynically to understand who's going to stand on the table for a guy that I have no interest in drafting because that player doesn't fit our culture, and thus that scout might not understand what we're looking for.
Yeah. That's
the old double-edged sword.
Yeah. That's brutal.
One way to make sure your scouts are doing the things you ask them to do. Drake May ultimately goes number 3 to New England. Of course, his brother Luke played very well for UNC. His other brothers, basketball players as well. And they had a message for him after being drafted.
Pretty boy. Overrated.
Are you serious? Are you serious? I was getting emotional for a sec, but now I'm laughing now. Who let him say that?
And I missed this one. You found this one. I'm going to need more context.
Oh, my God. All right, so Drake May had just gotten drafted, and I'm guessing, like, he's in the green room or, like, he's somewhere. Like he's
in the green room. He was in Detroit.
And I guess his brothers, they had, like, pre-recorded something with whoever, I guess, showed him the video. And they basically said to, like, describe Drake May in, like, one word or, like, 2 words. And those were the words his brothers use, and it was pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
Good way to not get emotional, that's for sure. There was some other. Jaden Daniels' mom had a beautiful one. So it was that video?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so there were some really good ones. There was also that one. Speaking of actually getting emotional, Jared Verse went to the Rams in round 1. First round pick for the Rams since 2016. Last one was Jared Goff. And he got to bring a friend back along. Here's how Les Snead and Sean McVay got to talk to their second round pick, Braden Fisk.
Hey, Braden.
Yes, sir.
This is Les Snead, Los Angeles Rams.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Hey, we just traded in, I forget what pick it is. What is it?
39th.
39th.
That, to me, is the funniest part. Les is like, I don't know, man. We're going to go up there and draft you.
And we're going to draft you. What do you think?
Yes, sir. That's unbelievable. I can't think. I get to wait. I'm playing with Verse again?
Oh, and you know what? We're trying to get Verse to drive up and make the call to you. But he got stuck in traffic, so he's probably about a minute away.
No
Congrats.
way,
Enjoy it. I'm
man.
going to put you on the phone right now with your new head coach, Sean McVay.
Braden.
How's it going, Coach?
Oh, man, we are fired the up, bro. I can't wait to watch you two back in action together, pair you up with Kobe Turner. Hey,
you have no idea what you
now
just
you're
did.
going. Now you're going East Coast to West Coast, man.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jared, talk to your new teammate Braden Fisk, man.
Hey, Fisk. Let's go, boy.
Boy, no way.
How about that? We got you two together.
I told you, man. Oh my God, bro. Can't wait to play with you again.
At this point, they're both getting emotional.
Oh shit, bro. I can't wait, bro. Bro, we gonna do this, man. We gonna do this. I'm so proud of you, man. Yeah, man. Oh shit, bro.
Oh, that is awesome. Hey, should have known that, man. Hey,
good luck
how
following
cool
that.
is that, man?
Good luck
Let's go.
Let's go.
I love draft weekend for
That
moments
is
like that.
Crazy.
Moments like that. You can't understand a word they're saying at the end,
Nope.
but like you can hear the emotion. Definitely worth checking out the video that the Rams put out to see it. I heard a great story from Dane Brugler on the Athletic Football Show about those two. And, Fisk might be a little bit of an overdraft at 39, but, like, a lot of people really like him, whatever. But from an intensity standpoint, like a dog standpoint, like, Jared Verse is elite in that category. And, that's something that the Rams, like a lot of the best teams in the league, like, really value. And apparently when they were talking to Verse said I don't know whether it was the Rams or someone else, but it came out from Dane that Verse said the only dude that played as hard as he did that he'd ever played with in his life was Braden Fisk. And so that was one of the things that certainly attracted the Rams to Fisk at 39. Keep those two together. Meanwhile, their former Florida State teammate, Keon Coleman, he's got a different kind of mic'd up moment this weekend. Some shopping advice.
Huh? Nah, man, you forgot I went to school in Michigan for 2 years? Guess where I got this from, though? I'm saying you got to guess. You're going to be wrong, though, but guess. Nah. Macy's. What you mean? They be on sale on the rack, all the colors. Look, $79, $89. Nice little deal. You can get the trench coat for like $100. Nice little. I'll take you there personally. I might go get some more colors. I need a blue one and another red one. See, I ain't know nothing about Thanksgiving. I shop like my mom. I get my coats in the summertime. You gotta shop a season or two before, just in case, and they be cheaper. Cause you go at Thanksgiving, everybody in Thanksgiving. You know what I'm saying?
He's absolutely 100% not wrong. You want a great winter coat? Go in the middle of July.
Yep.
You go with Thanksgiving right before wintertime. Everybody needs a coat. That's capitalism, baby.
Yep. Supply and demand.
What is the better Keon Coleman clip from the weekend, though? That one or the snacks one?
The snacks one?
Oh, you not see the snacks? So they did the press. Like, if you've been in a press room, especially on a long weekend like that, there's snacks off to the side because the reporters we're in there all day. Luckily, I don't have to do that anymore, but I've spent more than a couple snack-filled days in that room in Ashburn. And Keon Coleman comes in for his press conference, and he looks over, and he sees the big table of snacks. And so he finishes his press conference, and he's like, am I allowed to have some of those snacks?
I'm crying. I didn't see that part.
And so he goes over, and he's like, holds up the chocolate chip cookies. He's kind of looking at them, and he's like, are these good? And someone's like, yeah, no, they're really good. And then he's like, I don't know if I want. And so she goes over, and like they go halvesies on it. They go halvesies on a cookie. Yeah.
That is so funny.
Keon Coleman, genuinely hilarious.
Yeah, that's funny.
Last two real quick, both from the land of the LA Chargers. Justin Herbert, apparently amongst the group to text Joe Alt, had to make sure to properly introduce himself.
Has anyone from the team texted you yet?
Yes.
Who?
Rashawn Slater, Mr. Quarterback, his name's Justin, texted me.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, he said, my name's Justin and I play quarterback.
Nice. That's very like him
Yeah.
to do that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Can you imagine getting a text? My name's Justin and I play quarterback. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the team.
So when Matt Ryan went to the Colts, that's what he texted Zaire. Hey, I'm Matt. I play quarterback. Can't wait to meet you.
Maybe that's a quarterback thing.
Maybe.
That's really funny. You're like, hey, it's Matt Ryan. I'm aware of your resume,
Yeah,
sir.
we know who you are, man.
Thanks. I have a really funny story next. The We Know Who You Are, or I Know Who You Are category. I will tell that story coming up before 6 p.m. Just remind me, Ant, in the next segment. Last but not least, though, Jim Harbaugh apparently got a text from his brother during the press conference that he was holding. Of course, his brother, the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, John Harbaugh, and Jim, now the Chargers coach, needed a little help.
My brother texted me, after the pick, and he said that's who I would have taken if he was at that pick.
What was your response to your brother's text?
He grabbed his
I
phone.
haven't texted him back yet. what would be an appropriate response there? Thanks. Thumbs up. I'll just go with the thumb.
Joe, you got it.
I'll give him a pound. I'll give him a pound emoji.
See, Jim's been around those college kids. Jim knows about emojis.
Yes, sir.
He's with it. That reminded me of another funny story, but we're out of time, of trying to be hip, trying to be cool. Had some commiserating with someone earlier today about that. But I will tell the story next of the most I know who you are moment of my life. It is an NFL player. It was very funny. And I would like you to also think, because I feel like you might have one or two. When you run in these circles, these things tend to happen. So quick story time next. Get back to your calls in the Commanders draft coming up at 6 p.m. Your calls on the Commanders draft coming up at 6 p.m. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. So, Ant, I was reminded of a story with the, if you just tuning in. Joe Alt, the Chargers now rookie left tackle, their number 5 overall pick, got a text from Justin Herbert introducing himself.
Has anyone from the team texted you yet?
Yes.
Who?
Rashawn Slater, Mr. Quarterback, his name's Justin, texted me.
Oh,
yeah, he said, my name's Justin and I play quarterback.
Nice. That's very like him
Yeah.
to do that.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, and then you said when Matt Ryan, who, by the way, CBS announced today is going to be a part of a revamped NFL Today, Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms are out, and Matt Ryan joins Nate Burleson, James Brown, and Bill Cowher, and then sometimes J.J. Watt. He'll continue on in his part-time role. But, yeah, that when Matt Ryan joined the Colts, he texted Zaire roughly the same thing?
Pretty much. Hey, I'm Matt. I play quarterback. Can't wait to meet you. Somewhere
Very,
along those lines.
very nice.
Yes.
Very nice of Matt to do that. So that got me, because I was like, there's somewhere in my mind, I have a story that's like that, of like hey man, like I know who you are. Thanks for pretending. And my story took place in a hotel in Alexandria when the Carolina Panthers were in town many years ago when I was on the beat. And for those that don't know, I grew up in the Carolinas, and that was my like childhood team. And so I grew up listening, at times to games on the radio with a guy named Mick Mixon on the play-by-play. Mick is just a legend down in the Carolinas, broadcaster extraordinaire, great man. And Mick was obviously in town to call. This was before the Monday Nighter at the time, the old nickname, versus the Panthers. That was like 2018 probably. Ron was coaching Carolina, and Mick was like, hey, I texted Mick. I was like, hey, I would love to get together. He's like, yeah, come meet me at the team hotel. We can have dinner. It'd be great to catch up. So this is like Sunday night before the game, and I'm like, okay. Mick said to come. Opposing team beat reporter just hanging out at the team hotel, but hey, Mick said so. And so, sure enough, I go and meet Mick at this hotel, and a very nice hotel in Alexandria, where the Panthers were staying, and we're having a lovely dinner. And people are flowing in and out of the hotel restaurant, and all of a sudden, a fairly large man comes up next to us and says hi to Mick, and Mick introduces me, and he sticks out his hand and says, "Hey, I'm Luke. Nice to meet you." Yes, Luke Kuechly.
Yes.
I know. I'm believe it or not, as a sports broadcaster, I'm aware.
You definitely should know who Luke Kuechly is.
I definitely did/do know who Luke Kuechly is. Now, the funny part of the story, Ant, is this. Mick introduced me as a young sports broadcaster who was going to take his job one day. And at that point, Luke turned to Mick and goes, "Do I need to kill him?"
What?
If I was going to take Mick's job,
Oh my
he needed
God.
to know if that was okay with Mick.
Oh, okay.
At which point I said, I don't know that I want Mick's job, and if I do, I certainly don't want it until he's ready to give it to me.
Yeah. Good gracious.
I was like, you, Luke Kuechly, can relax.
Yeah,
And that's the time that Luke Kuechly threatened my life, after very nicely introducing himself. Which, if you know Luke Kuechly at all, which that's the extent that I know Luke Kuechly, but everything I know about him, that's kind of the perfect Luke Kuechly story.
Yeah, I can relate because I don't know what I would have done if a linebacker that stout.
He took like half a step towards me too.
Oh my gosh!
And I was just sitting down, like, well, what am I gonna do?
Hold on, are
Flinch?
you taller than him?
No, I was sitting down eating dinner.
Oh man, never mind.
Like, what was I gonna do? I was just gonna sit there and take it. I fight back.
Give him a hug.
Yeah. My mom loves you. Which is true. Yeah, no. Not Luke was a delight after he threatened my life. But then he just went on his day. And I was
great
like,
first impression.
Yeah. Ironically, the guy who took Mick's job once Mick retired on his own free will is my pal Anish Shroff, who was on the show with us during free agency.
Mm-hmm.
So Anish is much more qualified for a play-by-play job than me. He's been doing it for a decade plus at an extraordinarily high level. I do this, which is a different job. Nothing says one is better than the other. It's just a different gig. I haven't done play-by-play in a long time. I would love to do some more. I miss it, but I wasn't going to take Mick's job. Do you have a yeah, I know who you are, thanks for introducing yourself story?
I mean, I've met who's probably the most famous person I done met.
I mean, I think doing this, you meet a bunch of famous people.
Yeah, I meet a lot of people.
And it's like one thing. I mean, even today, like, shaking hands with Mystics players that I have never met before, and like I obviously know who they are. I'm about to interview them. Be like, so who are you again? Like that would be really bad if I did that at media day. But there's kind of like hey, I'm Craig. Hey, I'm Stephanie Dolson, or Carly Samuelson. Like, nice to meet you. Okay, cool, great. But it's a little different than Luke. Just like the way he did it was like, hey, I'm Luke. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
I don't know. Did you tell him your name?
Yeah.
Or Mick?
I think Mick
Mick
was like,
okay.
this is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably what it was then. Okay.
Yeah.
He was just being nice.
Yeah, no, he was definitely being nice.
Yeah.
But I think the reason Mick didn't say Luke's name is because I knew who Luke was.
You already knew.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Anyway, I actually know some people who know Luke, and I think we might eventually be able to get him on the show. Break down some ball, which would be really fun. And I'm definitely going to tell him that story. And would love to do it on the podcast where we have him on video and I can see his facial reaction to see if he remembers, and two, if he remembers threatening my life.
That would be funny.
For who?
For him.
I feel better about telling him that story not in person though, because what if he decides that it was a good idea?
Oh man. Well, watch your
Say it's not really my back.
Yeah. Keep your head on the swivel.
Yeah. Luke. Turns out Luke Kuechly can still tackle. Who knew? I don't want to find out. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, we'll take your calls. How do you feel about the Commanders draft? It is done, dusted, and in the books. How do you feel about what Adam Peters did in his first draft as general manager of the Commanders? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Talking to you next on the Hoffman Show. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. Appreciate you joining us on this Monday after the NFL draft, where you can give us a phone call at 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980 is where you go to chime in on what you think of the Commanders' first draft class under Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. Of course, Jaden Daniels headlines it with the number 2 overall pick. But then Friday, you add Jazon Newton, you add Mike Sainer still, you add Ben Sinnott, you add Brandon Coleman, the third rounder, 67th pick, who I think is going to wind up playing tackle for this team. So going to be definitely interesting to watch his development. Then you flush it out over the rest of the weekend. Luke McCaffrey, pick 100, certainly intriguing as well. But let's see what the people think, and get your thoughts on this in a second too. But 301-230-0980. Let's go to Marvin in Landover. Marvin, get us started here in the 6 o'clock hour. What did you think of the draft?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Hey, look, man, I think the grade that I'm gonna give is a D-.
Wow.
And I'm gonna be as serious as I can possibly. You have a quarterback, and I love that pick, and that's an A+. But everything then should be hell-bent on making sure that this guy has the best chance to survive. I saw Andrew Wiley get used like a turnstile last year. The whole draft to me hinges on if you can develop Brandon Coleman. And I just don't think that that's really that great. I honestly thought Sinnott was like a super reach when you had like Kingsley Fiamotu and I'm trying to think, was it Patrick Paul? Or somebody got drafted right before.
Yeah, they
Kansas
were,
City
but
took them at the end of the third round.
They were, but yeah, Suamatia. I don't know the exact pronunciation.
Something like that. But I'm just saying.
But here's the thing: like those guys are project left tackles, the same that Brandon Coleman is.
Yeah, but I would have honestly, I'm drafting 2 because I don't think that either tackle is really a quality spot. Unless Trent Scott is something we don't know about, I don't understand. I'm trying to get this offensive line. It made me feel like watching Ron draft again. Ron kept pushing it back until it rolled over and it died.
But hold on. Here's the thing, Marvin. Like, I respect you having a different opinion than everyone else. I'm just trying to understand it. So they got 2 players at 50 and 53. One in Sinnott, who you can use as an inline blocker to help your tackles, and also from a personnel standpoint allows you to do some things that perhaps take pass rushers off the field.
No. That's not true.
Yes, it is true. Whether you think it helps your tackle, like whether it satisfies your needs.
Sinnott's not a blocker.
Yes, he is.
Sinnott's a pass catcher.
No, he's not. He's both.
No,
he's a blocker.
He's more of an H-back.
What do you think an H-back is?
Yeah, H-back is kind of like a hybrid fullback, hybrid.
Yeah. You know what a fullback does, Marvin?
Yeah, the 6'1", 241 who wear neck braces. Yeah, those are fullbacks. This guy's not that. He's 6'5", 6'4", and he's like 235, 240. He's not the same as one of those, like, monster.
Yeah, he's not Mike Allstott, but the linebackers don't look like the ones that Mike Allstott had to block either.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna give you that. But I'm just saying.
He's also I have the beast in front of me, thankfully, so I can fact check you here. He's 6'3", 250.
Okay, and I'm gonna give you this. Wait a minute, let me just throw this in there before you might. But I'm not really complaining about the skill set of all the other players they drafted. All those are good football players. K-State, Michigan, all those guys I watched a lot, and they are good football players. What I didn't like was that I should have had 2 offensive linemen in the top 100. And I only got 1, and 1 to me is more of a guard. I watched Brandon Coleman in college. He's a guard to me. I watched him a lot. TCU played in the championship game last year, and I was like, and I'm an offensive lineman at heart. So
what position? At heart? Oh, that's cute. That's cute, Marvin. Because you want to know what position he played last year in 2022?
Tackle.
Yeah.
He played tackle. But
yeah.
I think I don't see him as a tackle. I see him as a guard. I'm just saying. I understand. You're saying at heart you want to make it. I'm just serious. I'm just saying. I just understand that this guy looks like a guard more to me. Just like I said about Cosme. I was saying that about Cosme. I said he looks more like a guard to me. I said he looks like a guard.
Well, yeah, but he and Cosme are different. Like, Coleman's built like a tackle.
He's bigger. He's definitely bigger.
He's bigger, and he doesn't have a soft shoulder like Cosme did. Like, he plays a lot better in space.
I mean, he's probably a little bit better athlete. I mean, I'm not like. See, the problem is, I like Coleman as a football player too. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, I think the whole draft hinges on if Coleman can develop into a left tackle. Because honestly, what we had at tackle last year was really, really subpar, and that's the place that looked really bad. I liked Sam Howell as a quarterback, but he held the ball too long, and protection broke down. So we had two things that worked against us all the time.
And you also had an offensive coordinator who dropped him back 435 times when that was completely – yeah. So maybe Marvin, just maybe that if you didn't expose a guy like Andrew Wiley 435 times in straight dropback situations, and you created an offense that could use personnel to dictate matchups and give a quarterback information, and you had a heavier use of the run game and the play action game, you didn't throw the ball at a historical rate on first and second down, maybe a guy who's still graded out as a middle-of-the-road tackle in Andrew Wiley per PFF, which is good of a grade as we have publicly, maybe he wouldn't give up as many sacks. Maybe if you actually use your scheme to set up a guy to succeed, that you could win with him. Like, I don't know, the Chiefs did when he was a Super Bowl champion at right tackle.
I just want to throw this out there really fast.
Okay.
Sooner or later, every time you play football, there's going to be known downs. 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. There's going to be downs where it's mano a mano. It's about, you know what's coming. Now you have to execute. And I don't see that in Wiley. I know that he got exposed last year by a bad coordinator and everything like that. But sooner or later, those plays happen, and you can't deny that
You're not wrong, Marvin. And I've enjoyed this conversation. Is why I've kept you on the phone for so long. We're having a little fun going back and forth here. But to be clear, like, I'm enjoying this, and I think you are too. Here's what I would tell you is that what you're saying is 100% true. And if you can draft guys who can anchor your line, where it's Trent Williams out there at its very best version, and you literally don't have to think about it, that's great. I think saying that they could have gotten that in Kingsley Suamataia or Patrick Paul or any of the guys that were on the board for them is overstating, or at the very best is like a best case scenario. And that best case scenario is just as true for Brandon Coleman.
Yeah, I think all of them kind of, but I like Suamataia. I really like.
So you're taking your that's the thing. It's like
players they like.
Yeah,
I like Suamataia.
Yeah, so but here, what if I told you this? What if I told you that Washington didn't have him on the board? I don't know this to be true. I know the fact that I'm about to share to be true. I don't know how Washington interpreted this. But what if I told you Washington didn't have him on the board because he couldn't handle being in Oregon? He was too homesick and felt like he needed to be closer to home, and that took him off the board. That's why he transferred from Oregon back to Utah. That's not like a fake thing.
But a lot of people in this world get homesick. A lot of people want to be home for a while. I mean, you have to grow up. That's the whole point.
Okay, but if I'm drafting you in the second round, I don't have time for you to grow up. I need you to be grown right now, and that's the thing.
I'm talking about.
All right, Marvin, I gotta run because we are now up against the clock here for the segment. But like, this is why I tend to go on draft day. Like, the only people I'm gonna kill on the day after the draft are people like Atlanta who do absolutely insane things that are totally unjustifiable based off of roster construction when you look at what it takes to win in this league. As long as you don't take a guy that everyone else has as an undrafted free agent first, like, people are going to disagree between rounds 2 and 5 on who's good and who's not. And ultimately, the reason I like Washington's draft is because they bet on good people. They bet on guys that were team captains, leaders, play on the tape with physical toughness, and there's some times that a guy like Suamataia does, and there's some times that he doesn't. There is never a time that Brandon Coleman doesn't show that physical maturity and finish and nastiness and all the stuff that you like when you watch his tape. And that's the thing that you have to understand when you're doing if you want to be amateur scout, that's fine. Ultimately, all of us, like I get paid to host a radio show. I don't get paid to scout. I guess they're kind of one and the same. But at the end of the day, the people that are paid to do this by the teams are trying to build their team. So if you like a player better in a vacuum, that's fine. But you got to understand how he fits with the plan of what the team is drafting. So if you want to say there's other tight ends you like, that's fine. But there ain't a better tight end in this class that's the Kyle Juszczyk H-back F move tight end type than Ben Sinnott. And that's really important for Adam Peters apparently to have. And for whatever, Cliff Kingsbury wants to have. And the offense he and Dan Quinn are building. And so I that's why I just disagree with Marvin. Like, he can have his opinion, and we're going back and forth. And, I think it's funny sometimes when I push back on things that I disagree with. It's like, why don't you let people have their opinions? I did. I let Marvin on the phone for a long time. But I disagree with it because I'm trying to evaluate the Commanders through the lens of the Commanders. And that's why I vehemently disagree that this was a bad draft. I also don't think from a play style standpoint that a lot of those other players that were allegedly available are actually solutions to their problems. And ultimately, I understand that the Commanders cannot fix all of their problems in 1 year. And the idea that, like, oh, they didn't fix the O-line, it's not set for the entire Jaden Daniels decade. Yeah, no kidding, because they had to use the number 2 pick on Jaden Daniels. And they didn't have another first rounder. And trading back up would have been really expensive. And they didn't have a partner to do it with. They tried. So at the end of the day, like, I'm just going to accept that, yes, that might make Jaden Daniels' job a little bit harder this year. But there's other ways to help him. They're not dead in the water. And they can address that in terms of a long-term need, hopefully as soon as next year. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. More of your calls, either on the Commanders draft or on Marvin next. the Hoffman Show. We are live on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube at the Team 980 if you want to watch the show. Taking your calls on the Commanders draft or your calls on the calls about the Commanders draft at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Let's go to James. James, thanks for holding through the break. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. First of all, to Marvin, you need to worry about whether my french fries are hot or cold while you working at your job at McDonald's. Talking about like you a or something. All you do is play Madden. You only watch a couple of clips that they show on YouTube or whatever. So just hush it. Peters, we hired him for a reason. Let the man do his job and judge on it afterwards. Secondly, what I don't think enough people are talking about the draft, and I really like the draft, first of all, but what I don't think a lot of people are considering is that when they picked up Johnny Newton, and people are complaining, oh, we already got Payne, we already got Allen. Well, think about it. What type of defense did Darren Quinn run?
He ran a 4.3 in Seattle and in Dallas. So if you're going to say he ran a 3.4, that's not correct. But a lot of multiplicity within it.
Correct. So even we don't have any edges now. But can you imagine a 3-4 line with Newton, Allen, and Payne with the linebackers that we have now? I mean, when Jamin Davis rushed the quarterback last year, he did a good job at that. They need to have something to be able to cause havoc to get the ball back. Let the man do his job. Criticize him at the end of the year. Nobody knows what the future is going to bring. If they did, they would tell me what the number's going to be tonight, and I'll play the Powerball, and we all be going out to party.
Hey, James, as long as I get an invite, that sounds good to me. Appreciate the call, man. I do typically like to just laugh when people come in and like throw out their crazy scheme ideas. But I mean, it is the kind of thing that I have thought about, and I think it's so widely bantied about on like Twitter that we can be sitting here in April recklessly irresponsible with I think a 3-4 look should be a part of the package. Like, I don't think that's your base. I think you're running that a lot because they don't have edge guys that are capable of dropping into coverage necessarily, or that are capable pass rushers down in, down out on the edge. Like, it's one thing to blitz as a middle linebacker or a will linebacker like Jamin did and be successful with it. And even then, like, it's not like he had 7 sacks last year. Like, he had a couple and like some other pressures that were valuable. It's something that he's good at, but he's not Micah Parsons waiting to happen is basically what I would say, right? Frankie Louvu is a guy that's lined up on the edge and had some success as a pass rusher and is a great blitzer as well. And so you could definitely see a look where on a third down situation, when you get in a 3rd and long, can you throw some different looks, and can you have, the double 3 technique with Payne lined up over the nose and, a Louvu and a Davis on the outside, or, oh God, now I just had it. Now I'm blanking on his name.
Chin?
No, not Chin. The pass rusher that they signed, who's been with Dan Quinn everywhere. He was in Dante Fowler.
Oh, Fowler.
Or like Fowler's on one side, Louvu's on the other. Like, those are probably your 2 best pass rushers right now. Or like a guy like Andre Jones. Do they take the draft pick from last year and get something out of him with some pass rush juice? So like there's intriguing possibilities, and I think like that's the point. The point is not like, oh, this means they're going to do this. It's like, now they have the option to do this. And they have shown, Dan in his past, and Joe Witt Jr. was with him for a lot of it, the ability to be creative and try some things. And I do think that Jerzon Newton gives you a flexibility to not only have Allen play less, but to try some, there's some teams that play with 2-3 techs on a somewhat regular basis. It creates different issues for teams in the run game. And obviously, like, it does leave the A gap fairly open. That's a problem you gotta figure out. But like, also think of Louvu and Davis, right? So let's get crazy here. Now we're putting our schematic. We're seeing if we can remember how to do football here in the middle of April. But like, you want to mug the A-gap, double A-gap blitz with those guys mugging the A-gaps, create some space. Now, part of the reason you do that often is you overload it with like a one technique, and then it's like a 3-on-1, who's coming, who's not. Do you squeeze down? But can you create a different kind of look where you go double 3 technique and you create a little more space in the middle, and then, the center's kind of like, which way do I go? And then you're bringing a linebacker down and blitz. Like, the point is you can create stuff. And to the point that the caller made, like the ability to confuse quarterbacks, create turnovers, rush the process, cause confusion, that's something that they just refused to do under Del Rio. Everything was so simple. And now, which was funny because it actually wasn't. They had a zillion rules, and that caused it was simple to solve and hard to execute, which is the worst kind of scheme you can possibly have. But now they have a chance. Now they have a chance to do that stuff, and they have the creative minds in the room to do it. And I actually haven't asked you what you thought of this Commanders draft yet. We have a couple minutes here, and no one currently on the phone lines. What did you make of how they did this weekend?
I thought we did pretty good. I was a little concerned about our what pick is that? 1, 2, 3. Our 4th pick in Brandon Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I did see that he played guard some last year. I think he played 4 games at guard and like 7 games at tackle.
Yep.
But I was more so just looking for a traditional left tackle. But if he has the flexibility and position flex, I guess, going back to Ron, to do both, I think it serves us kind of well because we also don't have a left guard set in stone necessarily. And I'm a big fan of Corn Lucas. I know I've been seeing on Twitter, Corn Lucas and him might battle for the left tackle position. We don't necessarily know, but that's been some of the dialogue that I've seen on Twitter. But he's the only one that I really had like a question mark next to, just because I'm just not necessarily sure.
Well, it's a question mark because we're like, we don't know what he is, and it's a position of need.
Yeah.
But here's what I would say. It's the Jacoby Brissett theory. If you're better than Jacoby Brissett, like allegedly Sam Howell was last year, which he was in training camp for whatever it's worth. Obviously, the season didn't play out that way, and when Jacoby came in late, it was like, should they have played him a lot more? Whoopsies. But like, if you're better than Jacoby Brissett, you're an NFL starter. Jacoby Brissett is the best backup in the league.
Yeah.
So if you're better than Jacoby, because he's actually probably like the 18 to 25th best quarterback in the league. Like, he's not actually a backup.
Yeah.
But he's, once you're the 18th best guy, teams are looking to replace you with a younger option with higher upside. So it's hard to be that guy and not be a backup. But if you're better than that, you're a starter. Congratulations. You've won the job. And to me, that's kind of Cornelius Lucas. Cornelius Lucas is one of the better swing tackles in the league.
Mm-hmm.
If you're better than Cornelius Lucas and you're Brandon Coleman by week 6 or week 4 or by the end of training camp, then he should be starting. And if not, then once you get to be better than Corn Lucas, you get to take his job.
Yeah.
And that also doesn't mean that they can't go sign someone in the second wave of free agency, or that they can't go sign someone when 1,000 players get cut at the end of August. 301-230-0980. I did see some consternation, including from Linnell, about Mekhi Becton not being signed to Washington. I'll tell you why you absolutely should not worry about that, and we'll take more of your calls next. Hoffman Show. We are on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. I got distracted for a moment because I was looking up at the TV for NFL Network, and Cynthia Freeland just gave her grade to the Giants for their draft. It was a B+, and she stuck it on the screen. They have like a touchscreen situation. And then she made the B+ bigger. I was like, wait, what? They got a bigger B+? Was that a graphics error?
Maybe they probably went from like an 87 to an 89, you know?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
Real quick, we got Paul, we got Ed, we got a couple more open phone lines as well at 301-230-0980 if you want to get in. But real quick, one thing that is my big takeaway from this draft is the Commanders are trying to build a very specific way with certain types of people. And this showed in free agency with how they approached it, and this showed with who they drafted, what kind of person they prioritized. Team captains, leaders, competitors, physical, tough football players that are not willing or not afraid to dish out contact and take contact and like just be tough sons of guns. That's what they want this team to be, in the same way that's how San Francisco is, and that's how Peters, along with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, built that football team, and that it shows in the way that they play. So if that's the case, that's why I look at a guy like Mekhi Becton, who gets cut by the Jets, signs with the Eagles today, or earlier this weekend, and I'm like, yeah, I get the appeal of getting a guy who's got a super high upside, but I don't know that Mekhi Becton's compete level is turned up to 10. It's part of the reason he didn't work out in New York. Obviously, health, injuries, there's a lot of factors, and there's certainly talent there, and I wish him the best. Maybe in this next stop away from New York, being a first-round pick of the Jets kind of sucks. The fans are all over you. It's a brutal place if you're not mature enough to handle it, and hopefully he just wasn't mature enough, and he goes to Philly, notoriously nice, by the way, but he goes to Philly with a lot less pressure because he's no longer the first-round pick. And he, the reason he went there is because he wants to learn from Jeff Stoutland, their O-line coach. And I don't blame him. But the Commanders weren't in it, and I saw Linnell and others freaking out on Twitter about it. And I'm like, he's just not their kind of guy. And I think that's what we have to understand is sometimes just because a player's talented doesn't mean that the team that you're trying to build and where you are in your team building process is making a mistake by not pursuing it. Talent is something. It's one thing. But character and who you are is ultimately the collection of that is going to define your locker room. And if you have a bunch of talented guys that I don't want to say don't care, but don't care at the level that Mike Sainer still cares, then you ultimately are not gonna get very far. And I think that's important to keep in mind, and why I'm not freaked out about, say, Mekhi Becton going to Philly and Washington never even giving him a look. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Ed. Ed, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, thank you all for taking my call. I appreciate it. I really like the draft. I had mocked two of the players coming here, Sanat and McCaffrey, because we needed that taller receiver. He's 6'2" and had the second best contested catch rate in college last year. And, a lot of people don't talk about that. And then with Sanat, jack of all trades, does a lot of different things. But you talked about something that I thought was very important, how there's a certain type of players. And I just want to delve into that a little bit more. 7 out of 9 of the players were team captains, but also a lot of those guys, Sanat was one. I can't remember who the other one was. They had 0 stars coming out of high school. So
Brandon Coleman was the other one.
Everything they got.
Yeah, Coleman exactly. Out of TCU was it's funny. We thought about doing a segment today where we just read the Beast, Dane Brugler's draft guide in the bio section, because it's so good. And so but for all the other listeners that haven't delved into the Beast yet, and looked up the Commanders draft picks, Brandon Coleman's story is amazing. He was a 0-star recruit who played basketball in most of high school and then just tried out football. He had to play JV because of the transfer rules as he moved to this new school. And then all of a sudden they're like, all right, go try O-line. He goes to community college, and then all of a sudden he's playing in the national title game a couple years later, starting at left tackle for TCU.
That's right. And then, a lot of the players that we picked up during the free agency, same sort of story. A lot of them were undrafted free agents. So a lot of these people have that, I've got to work for everything that I can get sort of story. And then on top of that, I read where the Commanders had the best RAS scores of any of the draft classes. So you've got folks who work hard, folks who stay in school for the guys that we drafted are working on their masters now.
Yep.
You've got folks who are team captains, and you've got folks who are athletic. I mean, that's
sounds good to me,
how
Ed.
you do that? I mean, Peters, yeah, right?
Yeah. Bravo, Adam Peters. Ed, great call. Good points there. Thank you. Let's go to Paul. Paul, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, I think that one of the things, beyond what the previous caller said, because all of what he said is true, but we really had a good draft. You think about, you got the number 2 ranked quarterback in the draft. You got the number 2 ranked defensive tackle in the draft at his position. You got a top 10 cornerback in Mike, you know what I'm saying, same string. You got McCaffrey, who comes from a football family. You got the dude Jordan McGee, who was ranked number 12. Ben Sinnott was fourth in his position, and Brandon Coleman was 3rd ranked at his position. You got 4 or 5 players in the top 10 position ranked at their position. And you tell me that's not a good draft? Not even talking about the extracurricular things of being captains and fighting for what they wanted and those types. You got good players. And so you can always pivot a good player to get a need. So, you get the good players, and then you work with them, you coach them up. And then if something comes up down the line where you say, okay, we can trade McCaffrey. I got McCaffrey being like a Delker. You know what I'm saying? Or what was the guy named Amidala? He's going to be like Wes Welker and them guys. He's going to be one of those guys in the slot that just keep catching balls.
Yeah, no, all right. Thanks, Paul. They're definitely different kinds of players, and I do think I love Paul's enthusiasm. I'm curious where he got his positional rankings. Also, we'll work, and we might need to start a supercut on pronunciations for Mike Sanderstill's name.
All right. I mean, we got who's the other dude?
Well, we looked up. It's actually, and Ant gets credit for this because he was saying Sinnott as well, and he's like, I actually think it's Sinnott, and I double checked the beast. It's Ben Sinnott. So everyone, PSA, his name is Sinnott. But saner still is what we're looking for. But I love the enthusiasm, and he's right. Like they got good players. Some people had them ranked higher than others. That's the nature of scouting. It is subjective. But this idea that they just got a bunch of like goody two shoes, like no. And that's the other thing too, is we talk about character and people are like, there's all the funny social media videos of like, who on the team would you not let date your sister? And none of these guys would hopefully be candidates for that. But also like, which guy would you not want to meet on a football field? These guys are all candidates. Mike Sanderstill ain't that big. Mike Sanderstill seems like a lovely human. I would hate to be matched up with that dude. That would suck. He'd just make your life miserable for the entire time. Or if I gotta, even if I'm like a guard meeting him in the hole, I'm like, yes, I don't have a big linebacker. But if I could pick any 5'9", 190-pound dude to meet in the hole, he's like the last one on the list because he might try to take me out. That's who that dude is. So the competitive character of these guys, I think, is off the charts, but they're also, like Ed said and like Paul said, really talented players as well. Also, by the way, McCaffrey, he's not like Welker. He's not like Amendola. They are all white. I hope that people on the radio can hear Anthony's laughter since he didn't turn his mic on through the soundproof glass like I could.
Oh, my gosh, Craig, really?
What are you want? McCaffrey's 6'2". He's not a polished route runner yet. I think he can become one because he's already shown a ton of growth. But like, dude played quarterback at Nebraska. He's been a receiver for 2 years. Welker and Amendola were like route running maestros, and they were both like 5'8". Short area quickness and burst was their thing. McCaffrey's 6'2". He's a power slot.
Okay.
People see a white. What do you want me to say, man?
Nothing, dog. It was just funny, man. It was funny. Could you add it? Because he's white.
What? Why else would you think they're the same kind of player?
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you know, I guess you don't come across too many of those, I guess. You might be on to something, Craig.
Yeah, I mean,
all right.
Like, clearly Cooper DeJean is Jason Sehorn. They're the only 2 white corners ever.
Yeah.
Like, well, at least since, well, we don't need to go that far back in the history. Yeah,
the Eagles actually, the fact they have 2 white DBs is, I don't know what they might be on to something over there. I don't know what it is. They might be cooking something.
They're establishing attacking a market inefficiency.
I guess so.
I don't know that that's a very. I think that market has done well for itself.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. It was definitely Mina. Who? Yeah, I'm gonna relate. This was so funny, and if this offends you, then I need you to look at yourself and your ability to have fun with life. Mina goes, I need the Eagles to draft Cooper DeJean, but I don't know if the country is ready for that in an election year.
Oh, my gosh.
I remember where I was standing in my house listening to that podcast, almost fell over laughing. And then they did it.
Yeah.
They did it. They really did it. Tell you what, I'm not going to put callers on after that conversation. I will take if you're on hold right now, stay on hold. I'll take your calls real quick before Real Things Next, but I'm not going to make you follow that. Wrapping up the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And do we have anything already planned for the show tomorrow? It's Tuesday. What are we doing Tuesdays now?
TC.
Yeah, Take Command, great Take Command, talking about the second day 2 and day 3 picks, as well as kind of the overarching strategy. That'll be in your feeds in the morning, but if you miss it and don't get a chance to listen, or you want to listen to the junks on your ride in, whatever it may be, we will play some of it for you here on the radio. Outside of that, pretty blank show. We'll definitely take a look at some winners and losers NFL-wide on the draft. So we'll go kind of league-wide after focusing a lot on the Commanders today. Take more Commanders calls. Vibe Check Tuesday, so we can take more Commanders calls. See if there's any more Marvins out there that hated the draft. 301-230-0980. Oh, I told the callers. You know what? That's a bad hosting job.
It might be the phone, though, because I'm not going to lie. Last segment, the phone randomly just dropped both callers, and then they end up calling back. But I don't know. They don't seem to be calling back, so I don't know.
They just must have dropped. I was like looking at the camera, was looking at you, and then
they were both there. You're right.
They were there, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
Now we just got a big old. Oh, I can't do the. There it is. Yep, that's the one.
It be like that sometimes, man.
Damn. What are we going to do now?
Oh, that might be him.
Might got a caller. Might got a caller. Hey. I don't know. I've been ready to take the calls. I should have. See, that's bad hosting, though. I should have just gone straight to the calls and then asked Ant what we had to do tomorrow. All right. DH is back with us. DH, sorry about that. I'm going to assume that we hung up on you. But now you're back. So what do you think of the Commanders draft?
Hey, man, look, I've been hung up on for much worse reasons, so we good.
You know what? Same.
Shout out to you for giving me that minute, 30-second break, because I was definitely about to come back with a Drake-May argument, but I didn't want to feed in to the vibe y'all had going on, so it's all right. But I will say, man, I did love the draft, the decisions that were made. I mean, it's really kind of an indictment on the past few seasons, man, where only a handful of draftees are still in the building, and this complete overhaul of the roster is crazy. But I think they were looking for a specific guy, and it's funny because months ago we were crying and complaining about not getting Ben Johnson when you see that Dan Quinn probably was the right guy for the job all along with the type of mentality that they want in the building and the type of guys that they were going to bring in. Like Ben Johnson would have, I think he might have folded already. Like we don't even know. But you know, I'm in the wait and see mode right now. Like we really won't know how successful this draft class is for a few seasons. But I mean, I've been sitting back and waiting for this long period of time. I'm gonna continue to do so, man. I'm gonna trust the process and just allow them boys to work. But I will say this on the way out: the victory lap the fans are taking for not drafting Drake May is wild to me. Like, I still don't get it, but it's wild to me. It's wild to me. As a Tar Heel fan, it's crazy to me, man.
Yeah, hey, DH, I finished with Jaden ahead of Drake on my quarterback rankings, and yet somehow people accuse me of loving Drake May in some irrational amount. I don't really get it. It's like they listened to half a second of a video in, like, mid-March. I understand why you like May. I understand why the Commanders took Daniels, too, but I appreciate the call. Let's go to Dell. Dell, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Hoffman, how you doing?
I'm good, man.
I wanted to talk about that individual that talks about these tackles. The reason why you get tackles with long arms is that when they push their arms out, it forces the defensive tackle, whoever's blocking them, they can't engage into them. And if they got a base, they got a nice base, they're very impossible to get by. And that's the reason why you get them. I mean, that's the whole reason.
It's also a longer corner around the edge. Like there's a lot of reasons to it. There's a huge benefit in the run game, but ultimately like, tackles have to play in space, and so the more space you can create for yourself, the long arm nature of a guy like Brandon Coleman like makes him really, really intriguing as a tackle.
And that's why a lot of teams are getting these type of players, because they want to make sure that when they cover these sides, get space, they can like block them one way, block them another way, and they can come and they can't engage them. It's the most frustrating thing that a defensive player has to deal with.
No doubt.
Very frustrating. And you see how Trey Williams, when he plays in San Francisco, he extends him and blocks him one way and blocks him another way, so that way wherever play they want to go to, they go in that direction. And he stays right by and watch to make sure that he doesn't come back to him, because he'll do the same thing to him again.
Yeah, Del, thanks for the call. And I think the other really big thing that a great tackle, like, and Trent's maybe the best of this, certainly in this generation, if not one of the best ever, is Trent has a great feel for the pass rush line. And, Logan watched about 100 snaps of Coleman at tackle. So he's definitely not through. I mean, he played almost 1,000 snaps at tackle in 2022 alone. Nevertheless, the 455, I think it was, that he played in 23. But Logan said he felt like he had a really good feel for that pass rush line. He doesn't overset or underset. He uses those long arms, but he also puts his body in the right position. And that is kind of the skill of tackle, is do you have a feel for the space? And it seems like Brandon Coleman has that, which is why Logan's really encouraged, and why, although everyone's like, oh my God, they didn't address tackle. It's like, no, they drafted Coleman, and they're going to give him a shot to play tackle, because he's got a shot to play left tackle at a pretty high level, considering his athleticism in the NFL. All right, Ant, do we have time for real things? How much time do we have left in the show?
We have a minute. Excuse me. We have a minute and 32 seconds.
Come on. I hit the button.
Real
now it's going to do the thing. It's going to. All right, ready, set, there we go.
Real things.
We're not going to be so this year.
Real people.
5 and 11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
We'll have to get back to Charles Barkley and his apology to Galveston tomorrow. That's going to need more time. From the NWSL over the weekend, Sophia Smith scored again for Portland, and she was doing the post-game interview, and she noticed something happening off in the distance.
I have a great team around me, and they're taking a team picture without me. Hello!
Sorry.
Sorry, that was so disrespectful.
She looked genuinely hurt. It became an instant meme. Instant meme. Did that make it to your timeline without me sending it to you, the meme of Sophia?
It has not.
Oh, man, there's some great, things. I think the NWSL, the league, credit to whoever's doing their social media, literally did a things that are so disrespectful. Yeah. Full 10 Instagram slides swipe through.
Wow.
I might need this on the board.
Disrespectful. Sorry, that was so disrespectful.
What situations on the show could we use?
Sorry, that was so disrespectful.
I don't know. Probably when I run over time. Sorry, Ant. Show's over.